Good morning, everyone. For those of you watching us now, and for those who will watch us later on the video, we're once again in the Long Island Supports Israel live Zoom that we will do every Thursday at 9:30 in order to give you the best relevant and accessible information that we can. My name is Dagan. I'm the senior emissary for the Jewish Agency on Long Island, and I'm sorry for canceling last time. Was happy occasions. My son was born, so I had a good reason, but again, sorry for doing it. And again, from now on, we'll meet every Thursday. Today, we have Arnie Herz that is here with us. Arnie can say hi.
Hello, everyone.
He's the former president of AJC Long Island and part of the AJC governors, and did a lot of amazing things for the Jewish people. And I will say, for me personally, it's just one of the family of the Center for Israel, host family, and doing so many things, and basically an inspiring figure that are not only speaking about things, but actually doing them. And today, Arnie will speak with us on the Intellectual Iron Dome, that is an initiative that he is leading on those days. But before we go to Arnie, quick update about the things happening now in Israel. So we are February 8th, 2024, the 125th day of the Iron Swords War. We still have 136 people hostages in Gaza, more than 120,000 people being displaced in Israel, in the north and in the south. In the past 2 weeks, unfortunately, we had 9 soldiers that died fighting in Gaza, total of 1,453 casualties total, and 564 soldiers from October 7th. We have more than 4,000 wounded soldiers, and we talked about it in the last time. When we speak about Gaza, a lot of those soldiers were wounded from bombs, which is a very severe wound on the limbs and everything, everywhere in your bodies. So again, don't take it lightly. We know that the IDF killed more than 9,000 terrorists in Gaza, more than 300 only in the past 2 weeks, and more than 200 Hezbollah terrorists in the Lebanon border. Today, I want to touch base with you about 4 issues in Israel. First, we go to the Gaza Strip, fighting in Khan Yunis. This is almost the southern city in Gaza. We know that before October 7th, Hamas was very close to be a military. They had 24 battalions ready to fight against Israel. In the next week, the IDF believed that they will destroy the 20th battalion, meaning Hamas will have only 4 battalions left, and the IDF will complete the overtake over Khan Yunis, above ground, and a lot of fighting that happened underground. This is one of the things that we've been learning the past 2 weeks, that the IDF is fighting in the tunnels, underground, arresting terrorists in the tunnels. And only a few minutes ago, I saw an interview with one of the Nukhba commanders that were found in tunnels, and he said, we decided we will stop fighting. When the IDF will come, we'll just sit and wait for them to take us, because we stand no chance against them. This is what happened now in Khan Yunis, and again, every day we're getting one step closer. Reminding all of us, there is still in this area more than 2 million Palestinians. So fighting there is very slow and hard, and the IDF is now in the 3rd phase of the war, meaning less air power and less firepower, but much more precise fighting. The next question in Gaza, it's about the Rafiah city. Rafiah is a city that is divided between Egypt and Gaza. You have the Egyptian Rafiah, and you have the Gazan Rafiah, which obviously, because of that, the border with Egypt is in the middle of the city. This is the southern city in Gaza, and we know that this is the last stronghold of Hamas in Gaza. And Israel believed that without taking over Rafiah, you cannot destroy Hamas and you cannot get to the hostages. And here there's a lot of, say, 3 or 4 different issues that we need to address before going to Rafiah. First of all, it's filled with people that has nowhere else to go. We talked about the humanitarian corridor that in the west of Gaza, but a lot of them are in the Rafiah city, and if the IDF is fighting there, they have no place to go. Egypt, in their side, is afraid that if Israel will attack Rafah, as it should, because we know that there's still a lot of tunnels and ammunition coming from Egypt to Gaza, even now. Egypt is afraid that it will lead to a lot of refugees running to Egypt with terrorists among them, and maybe bring back terrorists to Sinai into Egypt territory, which is something that Egypt are not willing to accept. But without going to Rafah, there cannot be real conversation about the day after in Gaza. Because again, we know that Hamas gained most of its power from the Rafah tunnels, and without destroying them or controlling this passage, Hamas can rebuild themselves easily. In that point, it's worth speaking about kind of hypocrisy from the Egyptian side. According to the peace agreements with Israel, Egypt is not allowed to bring combat soldiers in Sinai. In the last 10 years, they were asking from Israel permission several times to bring tanks and soldiers in order to fight the organization, and Israel gave them this permission because we understand the threat. And now when it's opposite and we need their permission in order to fight in Rafah and control and protect Israel, for now they refuse, and they even making a threat that it will affect our peace agreement with Egypt. So again, there's a lot of things on the table before going to Rafah, but it is a very big question. And I will say again, as an Israeli, I don't see other choice. Like I don't see an option live in Gaza without controlling Rafah. Two more things ahead. So we talk about Khan Younis and we talk about Gaza and Rafah. We'll touch base a minute on the West Bank. One of the things we need to understand, before October 7th, we had more than 160,000 Palestinians going to Israel every day, working in Israel, in construction, in anything you can think of, and more than 40,000 Palestinians working in the settlements. Since October 7th, from very obvious reasons, they're not working. And just imagine population who has no money and not working. This is a very good ground for terrorists or for terrorism as a whole to grow. And in the West Bank, it could be a very silent intifada, but we very may see that in the next few months, things will escalate quickly. It's worth saying that the West Bank is one of Hamas' failures. They were hoping that the entire Israeli Arabs and the Palestinian West Bank will rise with them and will fight against Israel, which is not happening. But the fact that they are not employing is a very big threat to Israel and to the Palestinians together. And this is in the West Bank. Going to the Lebanese border, this is a silent war. It's just a silent war, but it's a war nonetheless. We know that Hezbollah attacked Israel more than 700 times in the past 4 months. Only this morning, a missile was shot on my city, Kiryat Shmona, injured 2 soldiers. And it's every day, people are being displaced, and the war is happening. We know that France, UK, and the United States are working with Hezbollah and Israel to figure out a solution, a diplomatic solution. Honestly, it will be very hard to believe that such a solution will bring the peace and security for the people of Israel. But again, I know it's not on the news, but look it up. Like it's a war nonetheless, and it has casualties, and it's big. And it's big, and again, Hezbollah, I remind you, this is the biggest enemy that Israel had. And we'll conclude with the conversation about the deals that are on the table. There wasn't a meeting, a gathering in Paris, in France, about a proposed deal between Hamas and Israel. It's just conversations now, nothing concrete that's really going to happen in the near future. Hamas demands are very extreme. I will not go in the entire details of the deal, but in Hamas side, the outcome will be ceasefire for 5 months at least, releasing 1,500 terrorists from the Israeli prison, 500 of them with blood on their hands that killed a lot of Israelis, and Israel complete withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and Hamas maintaining power. That's for exchange in different stages, release all the hostages and the Israeli bodies in the Gaza Strip. Obviously, it's a very hard deal in Israel's hand that really want all of us, the hostages, to come back home. But in Israel, there's a lot of differences about it, a lot of conversation, but one of the biggest is we do not want the hostages in stages. We want all of them now because it's not fair for anyone. And we're not willing to stop the war and let Hamas going back to power. Put in mind Rafiah, put in mind Qatar, all the money coming to Gaza. We can go exactly the same thing in 10 years from now. And it's something that, again, Israel promised. Never again, it's never again. So this is the deal that is on the table. Hopefully that by next week, we'll have more information to give on that. Now I'll go to Arnie that will share with us about, again, his perspective of the situation and the Intellectual Iron Dome initiative that he's leading, and I think is amazing. And as I will tell you every week, this is on a nutshell. This is a glimpse. If you want to meet Arnie more, he's living here in Long Island. You can come to his lectures just to be more educated and aware. So Arnie, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dagan, and welcome everyone. As you talk, it makes me realize, again, how complex the situation is. There's no easy answers. And oftentimes, people sitting in their armchairs and their couches in the diaspora, Jews and non-Jews alike, are all military and political experts who usually come up with very black and white solutions. Bomb it completely, or just have a ceasefire and, just let's pray for peace and there'll be peace. But it's much more complex than that. And thank you, Dagan, for all you're doing and for educating us on all these fronts. There's also another huge element that perhaps you could talk about next week, which is you said that Israel's bigger enemy is Hezbollah. And of course, behind Hezbollah is Iran. And the United States is engaging in also a silent back and forth with Iran in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Iraq. And so the United States has lost some troops. Biden has come back very strongly. And it will be, I'd like to hear more about, the role of the United States, and can this be into a much bigger context? Because again, as we see that, and this is part of the intellectual Iron Dome that I'm going to talk about later, we need to understand the bigger context of what's taking place here. We have Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran with an Islamic extremist approach, not an Islamic approach, an Islamic extremist approach. Israel has nothing against Muslims, nothing against Islam. In fact, I believe 20% of Israelis are Muslim. Israelis are Muslim. People don't understand that. And that the bigger battle in this Islamic extremist is a belief that their philosophy, their understanding of Sharia law, in which women are hidden behind burqas, in which non-Jews, non-Muslims are considered infidels and should be killed, where there's an absolute purity of belief system, and anyone who goes against that gets killed, as many Palestinians have experienced themselves in Gaza, Palestinians who have been killed by Hamas because they didn't ascribe to their extremist perspective. This is a big problem in the Arab world, a big problem. And as you were noting about Egypt, and Egypt concerned about terrorists in Egypt, because Egypt had a big problem with this extremism, with the Muslim Brotherhood, out of which Hamas is an offshoot. So there's a much bigger trend here, and really a fight for a different type of world. And people in the West project their own goodness onto the world. The old metaphor of seeing the world with rose-colored glasses. We see the world based on our moral framework. When we're upset, it's because we don't have a reasonable need that's being accommodated. And so once where our need is accommodated, we can now be at peace with that person, because ultimately our goal is to live in harmony with another person. That's how most normal people operate. But that's not the goal of Hamas and all their supporters. The goal of Hamas, very, very clearly, is the genocide of the Jewish people and beyond. And this is what we're dealing with. They're not interested in a two-state solution. They're not interested in any of that. They're not interested in taking care of their own people. Hamas made it clear after October 7th that the welfare of the people that they're supposedly governing over in Gaza is not their problem. That's the job of UNRWA, which we now know is a disaster. We've known it, but the world is now starting to wake up to that. So this is what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with someone who wants peace. We're not dealing with someone who, they don't even want, it's not that they don't want peace with the Jews. They don't want peace with anyone who doesn't see the world in their extremist fashion. And this is what we're dealing with. It's a big, big problem.
Worth mentioning, you talk about the two-state solution. I think the last Palestinian leader that was agreeing for the two-state solution was Yasser Arafat in the Oslo Accords. But beside him, I never heard about a Palestinian leader for any organization that wanted a two-state solution. And it's coming clear that two-state solution is a Western concept, wanting to have an agreement in a land that nobody wants this solution. So maybe we need to change the mentality in the way we look at the solution in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dagan. And I'll just say that Yasser Arafat made it very clear publicly that the two-state solution was a stepping stone to the eradication of the Jews. He knew politically that if he could go along with this notion of a two-state solution, it'd get their foot in the door, and once their foot in the door, they would now fight with the Jews. Now, one thing people don't realize is that as it relates to Israel and Gaza, there has been a two-state solution for the past 18 years. We have a two-state solution. Israel did exactly what the international community, with their wishful thinking and hopes and aspirations, would happen. Just withdraw all your settlers out of Gaza, hand the keys to your industry, including your incredibly advanced agriculture and greenhouses, train them on how to use it, step out, and they will now be able to create a thriving state in this Mediterranean beachfront patch of land that could become, the hope was, the Singapore of the Middle East. So Israel did that with the hope and expectation based on the belief that people want peace and prosperity. And what happened? Israel withdrew. Within days, the valuable greenhouses were blown up. Soon thereafter, there were elections. Hamas took over, imposed a brutal form of government on its people, killed and tortured and imprisoned anyone who opposed them within the Palestinian world. We're not talking about Jews, we're talking about Palestinians, and created an enclave which has taken billions of dollars from the international community and diverted it to tunnels, weaponry, and infrastructure solely for the purpose of annihilating the Jews. And the head of Hamas made it clear. October 7th, we want to do it again and again and again. And despite this such obvious evil of October 7th and the transparent statements of the leaders of Hamas that echoed everything they've been saying over time, it's crystal clear that they mean what they say. We don't want any Jews in the area. And we will do any means possible to get rid of every last one of them. If that means we have to kidnap a 10-month-old baby, we will do that. And if we want, we will kidnap an 80-year-old grandmother and everyone in between. And it's free game. We could do whatever we want with them. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. And yet the West still comes back with this magical thinking that, oh, if we just had a two-state solution, everything's going to be great. Or we also hear Netanyahu is the problem. I'm not saying Netanyahu's is not popular in Israel, and there's been mistakes made, and I'm not a supporter or a detractor. But it oversimplifies it. If Netanyahu is no longer prime minister, Palestinian rejection of Israel's reality doesn't go away. If it were only that simple. When Netanyahu was prime minister, the Palestinians rejected Israel. When Netanyahu wasn't prime minister, the Israelis rejected. We could put the Dalai Lama in as the prime minister of Israel, and the Palestinians are still going to reject Israel. So this is what we're dealing with. And let's go back to the Iron Dome. The concept of the Iron Dome is that there's tons of myths and misinformation that we are dealing with in the Jewish world and our supporters that are just outright lies. But they're compelling lies, and people believe them. And it influences people, including Jewish people. And this weakens our clarity, our resolve, and our unity. And it's a huge problem. So I saw this and I decided, okay, you know what? Just like we have the Iron Dome that shoots down these missiles, we need to have an intellectual Iron Dome that shoots down all these myths and misinformation. And that's the course that I developed and had started delivering. And I'm not going to be able to go into it right now, other than just a few little points, because it's probably about 8 hours of programming with workshop. I mean, it's easy to become an advocate. It takes a lot of training. You know, as Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So you can have all the intellectual understanding, but when your kid comes home and tells you that Israel is a genocide state, or we're not doing enough to protect the civilians, or there needs to be a two-state solution, and, you know, Israel should just withdraw, and now all of a sudden you're like reeling. Wow, this is my kid, this is my niece, this is my nephew, this is my brother, this is my parents, or my whatever it is. Now you got your punch in the face. How are you going to deal with it? And if you get reactive and angry, understand you will have accomplished absolutely nothing. Nothing. So just like in the few sessions I took of Krav Maga, before I realized that someone's going to get hurt, it's probably going to be me. So I decided the mental Krav Maga. The mental Krav Maga is that you need to control your situation. You need to control your inner space. So it's very easy to get triggered emotionally when someone says something. So instead of going with that impulse, then you become reactive and you become ineffective. You need to get your own center, and you need to try to size up like the Iron Dome does. Is this a person worth engaging? Is this an argument that's worth engaging? Not every argument is worth engaging. Not every person's worth engaging. We co-hosted a program 3 weeks ago with General David Petraeus here on Long Island. It was an extraordinary program. And after the program, I walked outside, and there was a guy out there with a big sign screaming, you know, with written, Israel's a genocide state. And of course, the inner part of me wanted to go over there and tell him, you're an idiot. But I realized, like, that's not going to accomplish anything. And this guy's off on the side. People just heard from General Petraeus. This guy's not a threat. This is one of those missiles that can fall into an open field. And, you know, you realize that a lot of people have become human parrots. So you have to decide, if you're talking to a human parrot, all they're doing is parroting back what they heard. They have no understanding. They have no context. They feel strongly. One of the principles behind the Iron Dome is that there's an inverse relationship between how strongly someone feels about something and their knowledge level. An inverse relationship, meaning the stronger they feel, the less they know. When someone's absolutely certain about that, I say to them, I don't think your information about what you have can fill a thimble. Tell me, you don't like this or this. Tell me what you know about it. They can't even speak for more than 2 paragraphs. And it's all regurgitated stuff that they heard from somewhere else. They don't understand the context, they don't understand the understanding. So you have to understand who you're dealing with and how to handle that. And so anyway, that's a little bit of the Iron Dome. I understand that, you know, we're running low on time here. I want to make a couple other points, and then if there's more questions you want to bring forth. People, I think one of the things that's most important, and my wife and I understood this, there's a lot of people, including us at various times, where we end up into an intense debate and upset with our social media. We are accomplishing absolutely nothing except aggravating ourselves. We're in a circle, in a bubble. It's not helpful. It's important to understand the issues. It's important to be effective, but it's also to understand that our people right now need tangible help. There's a tremendous amount of physical, emotional, economic needs in Israel. So my wife, Suzanne, 3 weeks ago went on a trip, solidarity trip to Israel. And it was incredible. She said it was the most amazing week of her life. She met a soldier who was recuperating, and he wants to get back into battle, and he didn't have good combat boots. Think about that. We make this assumption that the soldiers have everything that they need, but they don't. So she and her friend Hetty, they bought him a pair of combat boots for $375 because she's fortunate that we were able to afford that. Then she went to an IDF base that's responsible for going into the tunnels that you mentioned. And they use sophisticated drones to go in there to see to make sure that the tunnel's not booby-trapped, because dozens of soldiers have lost their lives that way. Precious lives. But the problem is the drones require batteries, and Israel's out of batteries. So that's why I couldn't figure out, while she's in Israel, all of a sudden I'm getting Amazon packages all day of batteries. And then she was finding people in New York who could take the batteries with them when they go to Israel to deliver it. Same thing with tablets. And then the other thing was that emotionally, that she was sharing about how people were just breaking down crying when this group of American Jews showed up, and how meaningful that was to them, so that they didn't feel alone, they felt comforted, they felt secure. Anyway, with that in mind, that tangible help, she's created a new trip. We're going April 7th to the 13th to Israel, with an option for the Shabbat before, from the 4th to the 7th, with this organization called Keshet. It's an unbelievable trip. We have room for 20 people on a first come, first serve. Suzanne and I are going. So there's 18 slots, and 2 people already took another. So there's 16 left. We just put this out yesterday. So if anyone is interested in doing something tangible and really wants to show their support, this is a golden opportunity. Other points real quickly. People often say, where do I get reliable information? It's so overwhelming. How do I know what's true? So let me just tell you, I'm very involved with the American Jewish Committee. American Jewish Committee is a leading global advocacy organization for the Jewish people, and we've been doing so since 1906. We have an incredible daily newsletter that gives you a synopsis of everything that happened during the day. You could sign up for that at AJC, and I put the link in the chat. Similarly, 5 of the major Jewish organizations, AJC, AIPAC, Federation, ADL, and the Conference of Major Jewish Organizations, all came together in this, what's called the 10-7 project, to coordinate media messages so that we're not Jewish organizations moving in different places, that everyone's got a coordinated media response to the lies that the media and the myths that they often perpetuate. And so that you could also, as a link in there to sign up for the 10-7 project. I'm a big fan of the Times of Israel. I find their coverage to be incredibly balanced and insightful and valuable. Podcasts, Call Me Back with Dan Senor, Making Sense, Sam Harris, and Honestly with Barry Weiss are 3 of the podcasts that I listen to regularly that help keep me informed and to understand a much deeper analysis of what is going on. So respectful of time, Dagan, I hand it back to you. And
Yeah. First of all, Arnie, thank you so much. It was very interesting, and as I told you before, Arnie, for me, you're an inspiration. And again, being an Israeli and meaning all those amazing things that you do for my country and for our nation as Jews, it's more than amazing. And I agree. Helping shouldn't be complicated. Sometimes it's very easy, just like buying boots and just go to Israel and meet Israelis. So thank you so much for your time. Arnie, if people want to reach out to you and learn more about the Intellectual Iron Dome, how can they do it?
they could email me, and I'll put it in the chat right now. And for those who are just listening, my name is Arnie Herz, Arnie, like an Arnie Palmer, and last name is Herz, Herz, no T, just Herz. So my email is very simple. It's Arnie@ArnieHerz.com. And if you Googled me, Arnie Herz, you'll find my website and there's contact information there as well.
Amazing.
I'm happy to talk and tell you about some of my programs that we're giving and starting to expand throughout Long Island and beyond.
Amazing. And we will do our best to send to you via email all those resources that Arnie mentioned, so you will have it. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. I'm going to my son's brit. That will be in an hour. See you next Thursday. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.